Welcome, dear friend, to another gentle journey we share together. We are truly grateful that you are here with us this evening. Tonight, you are being invited to rest within a stream of calming Buddhist wisdom, carried through timeless Zen stories meant to soften tension, ease the heart, and slowly guide you toward deep, nourishing sleep. If you wish, you may quietly notice the time and place from which you are listening, simply as a soft acknowledgement of this present moment. What follows is a thoughtfully gathered collection of quiet teachings. Each story holds a subtle insight, revealing the silent strength already within you, the natural capacity to return to calm, to simplicity, and to ease. These are not just stories to pass the time. They are ancient reflections offered by those who understood the rhythms of the mind and the gentle ways to loosen the tight grasp of worry. As the Buddha reminded us, we are shaped by our thoughts. From our thoughts, our experience of the world unfolds. Tonight, these stories gently illuminate how the very concerns that disturb your rest can begin to soften and fade, opening a path toward comfort, clarity, and the deep sleep you long for. As you listen and allow the words to flow through you, you may notice a quiet shift taking place. The subtle knots of tension begin to loosen. The endless inner dialogue grows softer, less insistent. Without effort, you may feel yourself settling into a natural state of peace, one that welcomes the stillness required for true rest. So now, allow yourself to arrive fully. Let your body sink into whatever is supporting you. Take one slow, conscious breath with me. And as you breathe out, trust that you are about to receive wisdom that has calmed hearts and minds for countless generations. Teachings ready to offer you quiet and reassurance. Tonight, we begin with a story about the nature of the mind and the wisdom found in non-resistance. There once was a governor who took great pride in his disciplined intellect. This governor traveled to visit Master Yangguan, confident in his own meditative achievements. For many years, he had refined what he believed to be an advanced practice, the ability to forcefully suppress unwanted thoughts and emotions during meditation. "Master," the governor said with visible satisfaction, "I have mastered my mind. When distracting thoughts arise, I push them down until they disappear. Through this method, I maintain perfect stillness and clarity." Master Yangguan listened quietly, his expression calm and attentive. Without responding immediately, he gestured toward a large gourd floating peacefully in a basin of water nearby. The gourd drifted gently, reflecting the soft light of the afternoon. "Honored Governor," the master said, "would you do something for me? Please take that gourd and, using only your hands, hold it at the bottom of the basin so that it remains completely still." Though surprised by the request, the governor complied. He pressed the buoyant gourd beneath the water's surface. At once, he felt its strong tendency to rise. It pushed upward against his hands with unexpected force, demanding steady effort to keep it submerged. He focused more intently, pressing down harder. Yet the moment his grip loosened even slightly, the gourd sprang back to the surface, splashing the water. He tried again, this time using both hands. Still, the gourd resisted. And when his attention faltered, it surged upward with even greater force. Again and again he attempted the task. Each time, the resistance seemed stronger. The more pressure he applied, the more forcefully it rebounded once control slipped. Before long, the governor was breathing heavily, frustrated by his failure to restrain such a simple object. At last, exhausted, he stepped away from the basin. "Master," he confessed. "It cannot be done. The gourd's nature is to float. No matter how strongly I suppress it, it always returns to the surface." Master Yangguan smiled gently. "Your thoughts are just like this gourd," he said. "The more forcefully you push them down, the more powerfully they return when your vigilance weakens. Struggling with the mind only creates more disturbance." He gestured again toward the gourd, now floating calmly on the water. "Instead of fighting your thoughts, simply observe them as they drift across the water of awareness. When you stop struggling, you will find a peace that requires no effort." As Buddhist wisdom reminds us, what we resist continues, and what we allow can transform. The heart of this teaching lies in understanding the difference between suppression and awareness. The governor's method reflects a common habit, treating thoughts and emotions as enemies to defeat rather than natural movements to witness. We are often conditioned to believe that strength means control, and that peace exists only when disturbance is eliminated. This turns meditation into an inner conflict instead of a gentle practice of acceptance. Notice how this pattern appears in everyday life. When anxiety arises, we try to push it away. When anger surfaces, we judge or suppress it. When sadness comes, we rush to fix it. Like the governor with his gourd, we tire ourselves trying to dominate our inner world. Yet Zen teaches that thoughts and emotions are like weather in the sky of awareness. They appear, move through, and fade naturally when left alone. The difficulty lies not in their presence, but in our resistance. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This gentle paradox points to balance. We do not need to erase our humanity to find peace. We only need to meet it wisely. The gourd floating on water reflects the mind's natural state when we stop forcing. Thoughts rise and fall like waves, while awareness itself remains undisturbed. This does not mean becoming indifferent. Rather, it means cultivating what Zen calls effortless effort, a relaxed, alert attention that neither clings nor rejects. Like learning to float, peace comes when we stop struggling and trust what already holds us. Tonight, as thoughts arise, see if you can let them float freely without pushing them away or following them. Simply notice. Simply breathe. Simply be. As the Buddha taught, letting go brings freedom, and freedom is the ground of happiness. When we release our grip, we discover the calm that was always present. Now we continue with a story about the difference between spiritual states and spiritual presence. Master Shiwang once guided a community of monks renowned for their unwavering dedication to seated meditation. For decades, they sat in deep stillness, barely moving, seeking awakening through profound silence. For 20 years, they practiced faithfully under their beloved teacher. The monastery became known far and wide for its quiet intensity. When the old master passed away peacefully, many wondered which of his students had realized true awakening. A new master arrived, known for his directness and clear vision. On his first day, he summoned the head monk, a man revered for his discipline. "The old master has left this world," the new teacher said gently. "Tell me, where is he now?" The head monk could not answer. Despite years of practice, no authentic response arose. After a pause, the master asked, "You have practiced here for 20 years. What have you been doing all this time?" Relieved, the monk replied confidently, "I cultivated perfect stillness. I became like cold ash, unmoved by change." I transcended coming and going and found deep peace beyond the world." The master listened, then slowly shook his head. "That is not it," he said softly. "True stillness is not a state you achieve. It is simply this moment, exactly as it is." Later, the master visited the kitchen, where a humble cook prepared the evening meal. "Where have you been today?" the master asked. The cook replied without hesitation, "Here in the kitchen, cutting vegetables, cooking rice, washing pots." The master smiled, satisfied. The answer was complete in its simplicity. This story reveals the difference between chasing spiritual experiences and living spiritual presence. The head monk clung to a meditative state, while the cook embodied awareness through full engagement. Enlightenment is not something we attain, it is how completely we meet what is here. As Zen Master Dogen taught, practice and awakening are one. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, adjusting your pillow, slowing your breath, can you meet these simple moments fully? In doing so, you may discover that ordinary life itself is the field of awakening, quietly carrying you into rest. As the Buddha gently reminded us, peace arises from within and cannot be found by searching outside ourselves. The stillness the head monk tried to reach by rising above ordinary life was already present, quietly waiting in the simple act of meeting each moment exactly as it is. Peace does not live elsewhere. It unfolds here, now, when we stop turning away from what is already before us. Continuing our path through Zen wisdom, we arrive at a story about receiving teachings directly from the natural world itself. A young monk once traveled for many days across winding mountain paths to study with the revered Master Dogen, whose clarity and depth were spoken of throughout Japan. The monk carried with him countless questions about enlightenment, along with great expectations for the teachings he believed awaited him. On the final day of his journey, as he passed through a deep mountain valley, something unexpected occurred. The sound of a stream flowing below reached his ears. At first, it seemed like nothing more than background noise. But as he paused to rest, the sound grew clearer, fuller, more alive. Water moved over stone with a steady, unbroken rhythm, a voice both simple and complete. Something in that sound gently drew his attention inward. The monk found a large rock beside the path and sat down. Closing his eyes, he listened. Minutes passed, then more time than he could measure. The stream's voice washed through him, slowly dissolving his thoughts of teachers and doctrines, his hopes and questions even, his sense of himself as a seeker. The sound filled his awareness so completely that the usual inner commentary faded away. There was only flowing water, only this intimate meeting with what was effortlessly present. In that listening, a quiet shift occurred. Nothing dramatic, nothing he could explain. Yet when he opened his eyes, it felt as though he had awakened from a long dream. Colors seemed brighter. The world felt closer, more immediate. He rose and continued his journey, no longer rushing, a soft smile resting within him. When he arrived at Dogen's monastery, he was eventually invited to sit before the master. Dogen appeared in simple robes, his presence calm and attentive. "You have traveled far," Dogen said kindly. "Tell me, what is the most profound teaching you have ever received?" The monk reflected. He could have spoken of scriptures, lectures, or years of disciplined practice. Instead, he answered quietly, "Master, the most profound teaching I have received was the sound of the valley stream I heard while walking here today." Dogen's face brightened with understanding. He bowed slightly and smiled. "Then you have already met the greatest teacher," he said. "You have received direct instruction from reality itself. There is little I can add." In that moment, the monk understood something beyond words. Awakening was not something given by another person, nor found in books or methods. It was this direct meeting with life itself, clear, immediate, and always available, like water flowing over stone. As the Buddha taught, "Look within, you are already what you seek." This story points to a simple truth: our deepest teacher is not separate from us, nor from the world around us. The stream represents the teaching that flows through every moment when we learn to listen. Yet we often overlook these teachings, believing wisdom must come from special authorities or distant places. We wait for instructions, missing what is quietly revealing itself all the time. The light through a window, the rise and fall of breath, the feeling of the body resting. These ordinary experiences hold profound insight, but we dismiss them while searching for something more dramatic. Zen reminds us that the whole universe is medicine. Every moment, when met with gentle attention, offers a doorway into understanding. The monk did not passively hear the stream. He listened with his whole being. In doing so, he learned what no explanation could provide: that awakening is not something we acquire, but something we recognize. Not something added, but something revealed. As you rest now, notice the sounds around you. Perhaps distant air, a subtle hum, or the quiet itself. Like the mountain stream, these sounds speak of impermanence, connection, and presence. They ask nothing from you but your listening. As the Buddha said, truth cannot remain hidden. It is already here, waiting to be noticed. And so we come to another Zen story, one that speaks of the mind and the futility of trying to grasp what cannot be held. A sincere student once approached Master Fan, troubled by a question that would not leave him. He had studied diligently, practiced faithfully, and attended many teachings. Yet one statement remained unclear. "Master," he said respectfully, "I have heard that mind itself is Buddha. I have read it, contemplated it, and meditated upon it. Still, I cannot understand. How can this be known?" The student waited, hoping for an explanation that would finally make the truth clear. Instead of speaking, Master Fan turned and pointed toward the garden beyond the doorway. There stood an old stone lion, weathered by time, resting quietly among the plants. "You ask about the nature of mind," the master said calmly. "First, tell me something simple. What is the price of that stone lion?" The student stared, confused. "It is not for sale," he replied. "It has no price." The master nodded gently. "Exactly so." Seeing the student's confusion, the master added softly, "You approach mind as something to be owned, valued, and grasped through effort. But mind cannot be purchased, defined, or held. The moment you try to grasp it, you lose it." The teaching settled quietly between them, like dust returning to the ground. Mind, like peace, cannot be captured. It can only be lived. And as you drift now toward sleep, you may feel how nothing more is required, only resting in what already is. He gently motioned once more toward the stone lion. "That figure is beyond price," the master said softly, "because it is not meant to be bought or sold. It simply exists as it is, asking nothing from us, except perhaps quiet appreciation. In the same way, your Buddha nature is beyond value, because it cannot be gained through effort or study. It is not something you acquire, and it is not something you can lose. The master paused, letting the silence speak alongside his words. Stop measuring your mind. Stop trying to capture awakening as though it were a transaction in a marketplace. When you no longer try to purchase what was never for sale, understanding will arise on its own. As the Buddha taught, you are what you seek. Here we touch a deep truth of the path. The very thing we search for is the one who is searching. The student's confusion came from treating Buddha nature as something separate from himself, an object outside to be understood and obtained. Why do we so naturally approach our own awareness as foreign ground to be conquered? Buddhist insight reveals how deeply conditioned we are to relate to everything, including awakening, through the habit of acquiring and possessing. We bring a marketplace mind even into sacred space, believing peace must be earned, bought with discipline, or accumulated through knowledge. Zen calls this mistake throwing a stone at the moon. We use the mind to try to grasp the mind, turning awareness into an object. It is like trying to see your own eyes or bite your own teeth. The effort itself creates the illusion of distance between seeker and sought. The stone lion represents what is called natural being, effortless, spontaneous existence. It does not attempt to be a lion. It simply is. In the same way, your Buddha nature does not need to be achieved or fully understood. It is the quiet awareness reading these words right now. Zen teacher Alan Watts often spoke of the backward law. The more we chase something, the more it slips away. Happiness cannot be hunted. It appears when we stop running. Peace cannot be forced. It emerges when conflict ends. Understanding cannot be seized. It reveals itself when grasping relaxes. This does not mean abandoning practice or study, but seeing their true purpose. We do not meditate to get awakening. We meditate to express the awakening already present. We do not study the teachings to gain wisdom, but to clear away the misunderstandings that cloud what is already clear. Consider your own path. How often do you judge meditation by what you think you gained? How often do you measure progress against imagined standards? This measuring mind quietly creates distance from the intimacy of this moment. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." The within he spoke of is not a place inside the body or mind, but the immediacy of awareness itself, always present, never absent, needing no search. Tonight, as your breathing settles into a gentle rhythm, can you stop trying to price the priceless? Can you simply rest as awareness without evaluating or understanding it? Like the stone lion in the garden, your true nature asks nothing of you except perhaps recognition. The Buddha reminded us that you, as much as anyone in the universe, deserve kindness and love. This includes loving awareness itself, not for what it achieves, but simply because it is the quiet miracle of being here. Now we turn to another Zen story, one that reveals the depth of equanimity and non-attachment through the life of Master Hakuin. Hakuin was known throughout his region as a humble and virtuous teacher. He lived simply in a small temple, guiding students in meditation and offering counsel to anyone who came seeking clarity. Near the temple lived a young woman, admired for her grace and intelligence. Her parents owned a successful food shop and held high hopes for her future. One day, without warning, they discovered that their daughter was pregnant. Shock and shame spread through the family and the village. In that time, such news threatened a family's honor and livelihood. Furious and afraid, her parents demanded to know who was responsible. At first, the young woman remained silent, unable to speak under the weight of fear. As the pressure grew unbearable, she finally named someone no one expected. She claimed that Master Hakuin was the father. Outraged, her parents rushed to the temple, anger burning in their hearts. "Our daughter says you are responsible," they shouted. "You have disgraced our family." Hakuin listened quietly. When they finished, he replied with only 3 words, spoken calmly, "Is that so?" His response stunned them. There was no denial, no defense, no visible emotion. The accusation spread quickly. Hakuin's reputation collapsed. Students left. Support vanished. The respected teacher became an object of scorn. When the child was born, the parents brought the baby to Hakuin and placed it in his arms. "Now you must care for it," they said coldly. Hakuin accepted the child gently. "Is that so?" he replied again. For a full year, Hakuin cared for the infant with devotion. He begged for milk, endured harsh words, and asked for nothing in return. He remained untroubled by the loss of status or comfort. His attention rested only on the child before him. As time passed, the young mother was consumed by remorse. Unable to bear the weight of her lie, she confessed. The true father was a young man from the fish market. Horrified, her parents rushed back to Hakuin, falling at his feet in tears. "We wronged you," they cried. "Please forgive us. Please take back your honor and let us take the child home." Hakuin listened with the same calm presence he had shown from the beginning. When they reached for the child, he placed the baby gently into their arms. His words did not change. "Is that so?" The Buddha taught, hatred never ends through hatred, but through love alone. This story reveals the depth of true equanimity, a mind no longer bound to praise or blame, gain or loss. Hakuin was free from attachment to reputation and circumstance. Why is such equanimity so rare? Buddhist understanding shows how tightly our identity clings to external conditions. When our image is threatened, we suffer. We defend, justify, and resist. Hakuin embodied what Zen calls complete openness, meeting each moment without adding mental struggle. This does not mean ignoring injustice or becoming passive. It means responding without hatred, without clinging, without creating additional suffering. And as you drift now toward sleep, you may feel how gently this equanimity invites rest, like laying down a heavy burden you no longer need to carry. Instead, it points gently toward what the Buddha called right action arising from right understanding. When we are no longer entangled in defending an image of ourselves or trying to control how events unfold, our responses naturally become clear, kind, and free from reactivity. We act not from fear or pride, but from quiet awareness. The deeper teaching reveals that our true nature remains untouched by the shifting conditions of life. Reputation rises and falls. Praise and blame come and go. Circumstances improve, then deteriorate again. Yet the awareness that witnesses all of this remains steady, open, and at peace. Nothing that happens can stain it. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said, "You are perfect just as you are, and a little improvement is possible." Hakuin embodied this living paradox. He accepted full responsibility for the child placed in his care, while remaining inwardly free from the story, the scandal, and the emotional storm surrounding him. Reflect for a moment on how you usually respond to false accusations, unfair judgments, or sudden reversals. Does the mind rush to defend, explain, or control how others see you. Can you imagine meeting life's turning points with Hakwin's quiet acceptance? Tonight, as you gently review the events of your day, you might practice releasing attachment to how things should have gone and simply acknowledge what did happen. And when the mind begins its familiar commentary about fairness or injustice, you can softly ask, just as Hakwin did, "Is that so?" The Buddha taught that true peace does not come from circumstances aligning with our wishes, but from meeting whatever arises with spacious acceptance, seeing all experiences as temporary visitors passing through the vast sky of awareness. As our journey continues, we encounter another teaching on radical acceptance and the wisdom of taking responsibility even for things we did not do. This is the story often called the innocent thief. Master Ryokan, beloved for his gentle heart and quiet compassion, lived the simple life of a wandering monk. One morning he walked through nearby villages with his begging bowl, accepting whatever food was freely offered. His worn robes, calm presence, and open expression suggested harmlessness rather than threat. That afternoon, he approached a home where, unknown to him, something valuable had recently gone missing. The household was tense, suspicious, and unsettled. When they saw this unfamiliar monk arrive soon after the theft, fear quickly turned into accusation. In their distress, they decided he must be the culprit. Without allowing Ryokan a chance to speak, they seized him, bound his hands and feet, and treated him as a criminal. Through it all, Ryokan offered no resistance. He did not protest his innocence, argue his case, or demand justice. He bowed his head in silence, accepting whatever treatment they imposed. For some time, he remained bound, enduring discomfort and humiliation with the same calm he brought to meditation. He neither struggled against the ropes nor allowed resentment to take root in his heart. By chance, a friend of Ryokan passed by and recognized him. Knowing the master's character, the friend immediately realized a grave mistake had been made. After careful explanation, Ryokan was released. Once free, the friend confronted him in disbelief. "Why didn't you explain?" he asked. A few words could have cleared everything up. Ryokan looked at him gently and said, "Even if I had explained, I would not have been believed. It was better to say nothing and hope for the best." The Buddha taught, hatred never ends through hatred, but through love alone. This story reveals the power of radical acceptance and the quiet wisdom of not adding conflict to conflict. When people are gripped by anger and suspicion, explanations often deepen resistance rather than dissolve it. Ryokan's silence was not weakness, but insight. He understood the difference between being right and being wise. We see this dynamic everywhere. The more fiercely we defend ourselves, the more suspicious we can appear. The more we insist on being understood, the more misunderstood we may become. Ryokan showed that sometimes peace is served not by argument, but by patience. This does not mean surrendering to injustice blindly, but recognizing when acceptance opens a path that resistance cannot. By not fighting his situation, Ryokan avoided the extra suffering created by resentment and the need to prove himself. Zen practice cultivates what is called choiceless acceptance, the ability to meet life as it arrives, without immediately trying to fix, escape, or control it. There are moments when silence becomes the most compassionate response. Being misunderstood may feel unbearable, yet Ryokan's life suggests that accepting misunderstanding with grace can become a form of service, absorbing negativity so it does not spread further. This is not the loss of self-respect, but the expression of deep inner security. Accusations could not disturb Ryokan's peace because he was no longer anchored to reputation. And beneath this story lies a profound teaching on nonviolence. It is easy to be gentle when treated kindly. True nonviolence remains steady even when we are treated unfairly. Tonight, as you settle deeper into rest, you might reflect on moments when you felt blamed or misunderstood. What would it feel like to meet those moments with patience rather than defense? To respond with silence rather than struggle? The Buddha reminded us that one peaceful word, or even peaceful silence, can be worth more than 1,000 empty arguments. Sometimes, silence itself becomes the medicine. Now, let us turn to another Zen story, one that explores the difference between spiritual authority and worldly power. This is known as the Emperor's Invitation. High in the mountains of Japan lived Master Taigu, a Zen teacher whose realization was spoken of far and wide. Scholars traveled great distances just to sit quietly in his presence. Eventually, word of his insight reached a retired emperor, a man accustomed to summoning wisdom to his court. The emperor sent a formal invitation, requesting that Taigu come to the palace. The message arrived with ceremony, promises of honor, and symbols of imperial favor. When the invitation was presented, Taigu's response was simple and unwavering. "I can be a host," he said calmly. "I cannot be a guest." The messenger was confused. "This is an invitation from the emperor himself," he insisted. Taigu smiled gently. "That is precisely why I must decline. In the Dharma, there is no higher or lower position. There is only truth, which welcomes all equally." The emperor, upon hearing this, did not press further. He sensed something incorruptible in the master's refusal. Years later, Taigu remarked to his students, "Had I gone, our teaching would have fallen into the dust. Truth cannot be summoned or displayed on command." The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." This story points to the unshakable nature of true spiritual authority and the quiet danger of seeking validation from worldly power. As you drift towards sleep, let these stories settle softly within you. Nothing needs to be held, proven, or defended. Awareness rests on its own, calm and complete, like a mountain under the stars. Zen Buddhism teaches that this impulse arises from what is known as the gaining mind, the ego's quiet but persistent hunger for approval, recognition, and advancement. When this mindset takes hold, even spiritual practice can become something to acquire, a subtle currency exchanged for status, influence, or a sense of importance. In this way, the sacred path is quietly transformed into another marketplace. Our modern world struggles deeply with this tendency. We are taught, often unconsciously, to measure worth by achievement, to confuse recognition with truth, and to mistake outward success for inner peace. Even the spiritual journey can become another field of comparison, another ladder to climb, another way to appear accomplished in the eyes of others. Notice how easily we adjust our true voice to gain approval from those we believe hold power over us. A teacher softens truth to avoid discomfort. An artist reshapes vision to fit expectation. A seeker adopts popular ideas rather than listening inwardly. Zen master Suzuki Roshi once said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind there are few." When we become attached to appearing wise, advanced, or worthy of recognition, we quietly lose the openness that allows wisdom to move freely through us. The deeper teaching reminds us that genuine spiritual authority cannot be bestowed by others. No title, invitation, or position can grant it. It arises naturally from direct seeing and expresses itself not through elevation, but through humility and faithful service to truth. When this is understood, we become like Master Taigu, forever the host, offering insight freely to sincere hearts, unmoved by the promises of worldly distinction. His refusal was not pride, but deep humility. He understood that the moment wisdom performs for approval, it ceases to be wisdom at all. Tonight, as your body softens and the day settles, you might gently reflect on where you seek validation for inner work. Where does your authentic voice grow quieter in exchange for recognition? Can you remain the host of your own truth, sharing what arises naturally, without attachment to how it is received? The Buddha taught that thousands of candles may be lit from a single flame, and the flame itself is not diminished. Happiness does not decrease when it is shared. True spiritual authority grows through generosity, not through proximity to power. As we continue along this quiet path of Zen, we encounter a teaching on perception and the mind's remarkable ability to create entire worlds. This is known as the story of the eggplant in the dark. In a mountain monastery devoted to silence, there lived a monk known for his strict devotion to the precepts. His conduct was precise, his meditation disciplined, his commitment to non-harming unwavering. 4 years he found comfort in structure, clarity, and certainty. One moonless night, returning from evening meditation, he walked slowly along the familiar garden path. The darkness was deep, shapes barely visible, yet the path was well known to him. Still, something felt subtly different. Suddenly his foot pressed into something soft and yielding. A wet sound broke the silence. The monk froze. His heart tightened as his mind reached for meaning. He believed he had stepped on a frog carrying eggs. The first precept forbids taking life. And now he believed he had ended many lives at once. Shock washed through him. He knelt in the darkness, hands trembling, unable to see what lay beneath him. His mind spiraled with regret and self-judgment. How could he have been so careless? Sleep did not come that night. When he closed his eyes, visions appeared. Frogs surrounded him, their gazes filled with accusation. Again and again he woke, his peace dissolving into remorse and fear. By morning, his confidence in years of practice lay in fragments. At dawn, light returned to the garden. With heavy steps, he went back to the path. And there, revealed by morning sun, was not a frog, but an overripe eggplant, split open beneath his foot. In that moment, something deeper than relief arose. The monk understood that the suffering of the night had not been caused by reality, but by perception. An entire world of torment had been created by assumption. Standing quietly, he finally understood Zen. Not as perfection, not as rigid control, but as clear seeing without distortion. The Buddha said, "We are what we think. With our thoughts, we make the world." The monk's experience revealed this truth directly. So much suffering arises not from what happens, but from what we believe has happened. Our minds fill darkness with stories. This habit once protected us, but now often creates unnecessary pain. Consider how often you step on eggplants in the dark. A delayed message becomes rejection. A quiet room becomes judgment. A passing glance becomes condemnation. As you rest now, you may allow perceptions to soften. You do not need to resolve them tonight. Simply notice and let the mind grow quiet again. Your loved one returns home quieter than usual, and the mind quietly begins to invent explanations. Perhaps something is wrong. Perhaps distance has grown. Perhaps a problem exists only within thought. Each situation unfolds in the same gentle pattern. An unclear moment is perceived. The mind adds meaning. Emotion arises in response to that meaning, not to the moment itself. We do not suffer because something happens. We suffer because of the story we tell ourselves about what happens. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once reminded us, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. The monk became skilled in rules, yet forgot how to remain open in awareness. His certainty narrowed his vision, and clarity was replaced by assumption. This story invites us to notice how quickly we decide what something means. How often do we create fear from uncertainty? How much tension fills our days because we respond to imagined futures rather than present facts? Tonight, as you meet moments that are unclear, you may remember the monk and the eggplant. When stories begin to form, pause gently and ask, what do I truly know right now? And what has my mind added? The Buddha encouraged seekers to question deeply, to rely not on borrowed certainty, but on direct seeing. The monk's awakening did not come from stricter control, but from rediscovering the clarity that had always been present. As our journey continues, we now encounter a teaching about creative wisdom, the kind that arises when resistance softens and challenges are met with imagination rather than struggle. This is the story of the ghost-proof mosquito net. Master Sengai sat quietly in his small room, rubbing his arms and neck with visible irritation. For the third time in recent months, his mosquito net had been stolen, leaving him exposed to the persistent insects of summer nights. Each evening brought the same trial: buzzing wings, sharp bites, restless sleep. No matter how carefully he wrapped himself in bedding, a single mosquito always seemed to find its way inside. Speaking honestly to two elderly women who visited him, he sighed and said, "My mosquito net has been taken again and again. Every night I hide beneath the covers, yet one small insect always follows me." He scratched and laughed softly at his own misery. The women, seeing the marks on his skin and the weariness in his eyes, felt deep compassion. "Master," one of them said gently, "please allow us to help." At this, Sengai's face brightened with sudden delight. "If you are willing," he said, smiling, "I have an idea." He asked them to make a simple mosquito net, pure white, sturdy, and plain. The women agreed at once. They gathered their modest savings, chose fine cloth, and spent days sewing carefully. When they presented the finished net, they felt proud to offer comfort to their teacher. Sengai received it with joy, then quietly began to paint. With black ink and steady hands, he covered the white fabric with skulls, wandering spirits, twisted bones, and shadowed faces. Above, he painted the thunder god, surrounded by sharp lightning. When the work was done, he hung the net and laughed softly. "That should be enough," he said. That very night, two thieves approached the temple. They slid inside, lanterns dim, expecting an easy prize. But when light touched the net, they froze. Before them stood what appeared to be a terrible apparition. Trembling, one thief raised a knife. At that moment, Sengai struck his metal basin, his voice echoing through the room. "The god of thunder stands before you." Fear overwhelmed them. They fled into the darkness, never returning. The Buddha taught that what we think shapes who we become, that imagination gives form to experience. This story reveals the quiet power of responding creatively to repeated difficulty. Sometimes wisdom does not fight the problem, but transforms it. As you rest now, you may allow the day's challenges to soften. There is no need to solve everything tonight. Simply breathe and let the mind grow still. Most of us, when faced with the same difficulty again and again, tend to move along familiar paths. We become irritated. We complain inwardly. We repeat the same solutions, quietly hoping this time the outcome will change. Rarely do we pause long enough to ask, what different response might transform this situation completely? Master Sengai could have chosen many ordinary reactions to the repeated loss of his mosquito nets. He might have tightened security, added locks, or asked others to stand guard through the night. He could have accepted sleeplessness as another discipline of monastic life. Instead, he responded with a solution that was both effective and imaginative. His choice did more than solve the problem. It revealed something essential about fear, perception, and human motivation. Zen wisdom teaches that when we stop resisting the nature of a problem and instead move with its energy, new possibilities quietly emerge. The thieves were motivated by desire. They stole what appeared valuable. By transforming the net from something desirable into something frightening, Sengai redirected their impulse rather than trying to overpower it. We can see this principle reflected throughout daily life. A parent facing constant resistance may turn routine tasks into play instead of conflict. A business overwhelmed by complaints may change its entire approach rather than defending itself. A person struggling with anxiety may learn to work with nervous energy instead of endlessly fighting it. Zen also speaks of skillful means, the ability to use whatever approach fits the moment, even if it appears unconventional. Sengai's painted mosquito net was wisdom precisely matched to the situation. He understood the minds of the thieves and shaped his response accordingly, without anger or force. There is another gentle teaching hidden here. We often believe problems require stern, serious solutions. Yet playfulness, humor, and creativity can sometimes reach where confrontation cannot. Sengai's quiet delight in his idea reminds us that wisdom does not need to be heavy to be effective. This story also points toward the power of perception. The net itself never changed. Only its appearance did. Yet that shift transformed its meaning entirely. So often our struggles live not only in circumstances, but in the interpretations we place upon them. Tonight, as you reflect on challenges that seem to return again and again, you might gently ask yourself, where am I repeating the same response? What would it feel like to step back and allow creativity to guide me? The Buddha once observed that distinctions arise in the mind, not in reality itself. When rigid thinking softens, solutions long hidden often reveal themselves quietly. As our journey continues, we now arrive at a teaching about judgment and unseen knowledge. This is the story of the feast that revealed more than expected. Zen Master Dario received an invitation to dine at the home of a wealthy landowner, a man known for lavish hospitality. Many monks were invited, making the gathering both social and contemplative. Dario accepted, welcoming the opportunity for fellowship. On the appointed evening, he entered a hall filled with quiet presence. Robes of many colors rested around low tables, and dishes were arranged in generous abundance. The atmosphere was calm, respectful, and filled with shared silence. Unbeknownst to the guests, someone in the household had prepared a test. Fish had been carefully hidden within certain dishes, mixed with vegetables and seasoning, its presence disguised. As the meal progressed, monks began to notice something amiss. Some sensed it by texture, others by taste. One by one, they set aside their chopsticks, choosing to honor their vows quietly. Only Master Dario continued to eat, untroubled and serene. Those nearby grew uneasy. Had he failed to notice? Should someone warn him? At last, a monk beside him leaned close and whispered with concern, "Master, that dish contains fish." Dario paused, met his gaze gently, and asked softly, "And how do you know what fish tastes like?" The question settled like still air. Color rose in the monk's face as understanding dawned. To recognize the taste so quickly revealed his own familiarity with it. In pointing outward, he had revealed inward knowledge. Silence spread through the room, thick with reflection. The Buddha taught that wisdom arises not from borrowed certainty, but from direct seeing. This moment revealed how swiftly we judge others while remaining unaware of ourselves. Zen explains that judgment often protects us from honest self-examination. By focusing on others' mistakes, we avoid meeting our own. As you rest now, you may gently notice how often the mind points outward. The impatience of others, their interruptions, their mistakes. And perhaps, with softness and compassion, you may turn awareness inward instead, letting judgment dissolve into understanding and allowing the mind to grow quiet once more. What might change if each time that familiar wave of judgment arises, you paused gently and asked yourself, "How do I recognize this behavior so quickly?" This inquiry is not meant to trap you in doubt or strip away all discernment. Rather, it softens the heart, inviting humility born from remembering our shared human condition. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said that each of us is complete as we are, and also capable of gentle growth. This wisdom applies not only inwardly, but outwardly as well, to those we so quickly evaluate. Master Dario's calm response at the feast may have arisen from many layers of understanding. Perhaps he chose not to shame his hosts. Perhaps he sensed that intention matters more than form. Perhaps compassion called him beyond rigid rules. Or perhaps his teaching unfolded only afterward, revealing how accusation often exposes the inner landscape of the one who points. What this story quietly shows is that true moral authority does not arise from flawless rule-keeping, but from wisdom infused with compassion when life presents complexity. The monk who identified the fish was correct according to doctrine. Yet Dario's response illuminated a deeper truth about judgment, about knowledge, and about humility. We can see this same pattern in the modern world, especially in public discourse. How easily we share criticism. How quickly we assume moral certainty. How rarely we pause to examine the conditioning behind our opinions. Dario's gentle question invites stillness. It asks us to notice what our judgments reveal about ourselves. Tonight, as thoughts of others' faults arise softly in the mind, can you hear that quiet question echo? Can moments of judgment become doorways into self-awareness? The Buddha taught that hatred dissolves only through love. When curiosity replaces certainty, space opens for compassion to heal both sides of the encounter. Now we turn toward a teaching about seeing and being seen, about wisdom and its appearance. This is the story of the blind man and his lantern. One evening, as darkness settled gently over a quiet village, A blind man prepared to return home after a long visit with a close friend. They had shared tea, conversation, and the ease that grows between familiar hearts. As the hour grew late, the blind man reached for his walking stick and wrapped his cloak against the night air. His friend gazed into the unlit streets and felt concern arise. "Please," the friend said kindly, "take my lantern with you. The roads are dark tonight and there are many obstacles." The blind man smiled. "Why would I need a lantern?" he asked softly. "You know I cannot see. My feet know these paths, and my other senses guide me well." His friend nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps the lantern is not for you to see, but so others may see you and avoid colliding with you in the dark." This reasoning felt true. The blind man accepted the lantern with gratitude. It was a simple object, rice paper stretched over bamboo, a small candle glowing warmly inside. Though he could not see the light, he felt its warmth and trusted that others would notice it. He stepped into the night, the lantern swaying gently at his side. He walked with confidence, believing he carried light for the sake of all. But only a short distance along the path, he collided suddenly with another traveler. The impact startled them both. The lantern lurched wildly. "Why don't you watch where you're going?" the blind man called out, shaken. "Can't you see my lantern?" The other traveler paused, then laughed gently. "My friend," he said kindly, "your lantern is dark. The candle has gone out." The blind man reached out and discovered it was true. The flame had vanished unnoticed. He had been carrying a lantern, but not light. The Buddha once taught that many candles may be lit from a single flame without diminishing it. True light is meant to be shared. This story reveals the difference between holding the form of wisdom and embodying wisdom itself. We often collect teachings, concepts, and practices, believing possession equals illumination. Yet without direct experience, the inner candle remains unlit. The blind man's situation is familiar to all who walk a spiritual path. We carry frameworks of understanding, yet sometimes forget to tend the flame itself. Understanding becomes real only when lived. Knowledge ripens into wisdom through experience. Zen distinguishes between knowing about and knowing directly. One can study sweetness endlessly, yet never taste fruit. The blind man meant no harm. His intention was kind. But intention alone could not replace light. Zen master Dogen taught that studying the way is studying the self and forgetting the self. The lantern symbolizes identity, the idea of being wise or awakened. When identity matters more than presence, the flame fades. Sometimes others help us notice when the candle has gone out. Not as judgment, but as invitation. When do you find yourself carrying an unlit lantern? When advice is given without embodiment? When peace is spoken without calm? When wisdom is claimed but not lived? These moments are not failures. They are signals. The beauty of this teaching is that recognition is the beginning. The lantern is still useful. It simply needs flame. Candles go out naturally. That is their nature. The practice is noticing and relighting gently. Tonight, as you rest, you may ask quietly, which lanterns in my life are lit? Which need tending? There is no shame in darkness, only opportunity for light. As the Buddha reminded us, truth cannot remain hidden forever. By caring for the inner flame, we illuminate our own path and offer guidance to others. And now we move toward a story of fearlessness, and the freedom found in accepting what cannot be changed. This is the story of a meeting between a powerful general and a Zen master who remained unmoved during the brutal civil wars that once swept across feudal Japan. In those times, armies moved through the land like unstoppable storms, overtaking villages and claiming territory through fear and force. Wherever they advanced, panic followed close behind. When word spread that a feared warlord's troops were approaching, people gathered what little they could carry and fled, seeking refuge in forests, mountains, or distant relatives' homes. In one quiet village, as the distant sound of marching soldiers grew nearer, the familiar pattern unfolded once again. Doors were shut. Shops were abandoned. Families disappeared into the surrounding countryside. Before long, the village that had been alive with daily routines stood empty, wrapped in an uneasy silence. Everyone had gone. Everyone, except one old Zen master who lived in a humble temple at the village's heart. When the conquering army finally arrived and found the village deserted, the general noticed something unexpected. Thin smoke still curled upward from the temple chimney. Curious, and slightly offended that someone would remain behind, he chose to investigate for himself. With several officers at his side, he approached the temple, expecting to find a frightened elder or someone too weak to escape. Instead, he discovered the Zen master seated calmly in the garden, gently caring for his plants, as if the world beyond the temple walls were perfectly peaceful. The general was accustomed to fear. Wherever he traveled, leaders bowed low, voices trembling, offering gifts in hopes of mercy. Ordinary people fled at the mere sight of his banners. To encounter someone who neither bowed nor trembled unsettled him deeply. The master's serene indifference felt like an insult. The general's expression hardened as anger rose within him. This old man did not seem to grasp the danger, nor respect the power standing before him. Drawing his sword slightly from its sheath, the general shouted into the empty courtyard, his voice sharp and threatening. "Do you realize," he demanded, "that you stand before a man who could strike you down without hesitation?" The Zen master did not rush. He did not recoil. He continued tending a small flowering plant, his movements slow and deliberate. When he finally looked up, his gaze was steady, gentle, and clear. With the same calm tone one might use to greet a guest, he replied, "And do you realize that you stand before a man who can be struck down without hesitation?" The general froze. His sword remained half drawn, but his anger dissolved into stunned silence. In all his years of war, he had witnessed courage in many forms: the reckless bravery of soldiers, the desperate defiance of the defeated, the bold arrogance of youth. But he had never encountered this: complete acceptance, absolute peace in the presence of death. In that moment, the general understood something new. There existed a power greater than the ability to take life, the freedom that comes from no longer fearing its loss. This master had accepted impermanence so fully that even death held no threat. Slowly, the general sheathed his sword. Without another word, he turned away and left the temple behind. The village remained unharmed, not through strategy or negotiation, but through one man's fearlessness. As the Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. When this truth is fully realized, it no longer terrifies, it liberates. Here we glimpse the quiet strength born from acceptance rather than resistance. Much of human fear arises not from danger itself, but from clinging tightly to what must inevitably change. When that clinging loosens, threats lose their grip. The general's authority depended on others' fear. But one who has already released attachment cannot be threatened with loss. The master's calm was not indifference, nor a desire for harm. It was the natural peace that comes from understanding impermanence at the deepest level. Reflect gently now on your own fears. How much of your anxiety comes from holding tightly to comfort, identity, or control? True invulnerability does not mean being untouched. It means having nothing that can be taken away. The Buddha reminded us that a single word born of peace carries more power than countless threats. Tonight, as pressures arise in your thoughts, remember the Master's response. Notice how acceptance creates a stillness that cannot be shaken. And now, let us drift into another Zen teaching, one that reveals the subtle traps formed by our own grasping. In the warm forests of Southeast Asia, where coconut palms sway and monkeys leap through green canopies, hunters once devised a simple method to capture these clever creatures. It required no violence and no chase, only understanding. They hollowed out a coconut, leaving a narrow opening, and placed sweet rice inside. The opening was large enough for a monkey's open hand, but too small for a clenched fist to escape. Drawn by the scent, a monkey would reach inside and grasp the rice. Once its hand closed, it became trapped, not by the coconut, but by its refusal to let go. The monkey could free itself instantly by releasing the rice. Yet it clung tightly, pulling harder, growing more desperate, unable to see that freedom required only letting go. The food that promised nourishment became the source of captivity. This trap worked not because of strength, but because it mirrored the monkey's own grasping nature. The Buddha taught, "You only lose what you cling to." In this simple story, we see our own reflection. How often do we remain trapped, not by circumstances, but by our unwillingness to release what we hold too tightly? As you rest now, allow this teaching to settle gently. Let the hand of the mind relax. Let go just a little more. Sleep comes easily when nothing is clenched. And in that softness, wisdom quietly awakens. Why do we cling so tightly to the very things that quietly limit our freedom as we move through life? Buddhist psychology teaches that this habit of grasping lies at the heart of much human suffering. Our minds, much like the instincts of the monkey, are conditioned to reach for what seems beneficial and to hold on, even when holding brings pain. We close our inner fists around possessions, roles, relationships, opinions, and even moments of spiritual insight, believing that safety comes from not letting go. This grasping appears in every layer of experience. We cling to past versions of ourselves long after they have finished their work. We hold resentments that cloud the present with bitterness. We remain in relationships beyond their natural season. We attach ourselves to success, comfort, and recognition as though they could protect us from change. Even spiritual understanding can become something we grip too tightly, turning insight into limitation. The coconut trap shows us how what promises nourishment can become confinement. The rice represents those things we tell ourselves we cannot live without. A certain identity, a familiar lifestyle, a vision of how life or awakening is supposed to unfold. Like the monkey, we often fail to see that freedom is as close as opening the hand. An old Zen saying reminds us that nothing essential is gained by accumulation, and nothing essential is lost through release. Our true nature is not improved by possession, nor diminished by letting go. Yet conditioning makes release feel like loss rather than relief. pause gently and reflect. Where are the coconut traps in your own life? What are you holding so tightly that movement feels restricted? Perhaps it is a job that no longer nourishes you, yet offers predictability. Perhaps it is a grievance that feels justified but quietly burdens the heart. Perhaps it is an image of who you believe you must remain, even as life invites change. Letting go does not mean becoming careless or passive. It means holding life lightly, like water resting in open palms rather than ice clenched in rigid fists. When we soften our grip on outcomes, we often discover that what truly supports us arrives more easily. As one Zen teacher observed, suffering arises when we mistake our ideas about life for life itself. The monkey cannot eat the idea of rice, yet it trades freedom for the illusion of possession. In the same way, we often trade peace for mental objects that exist mostly in thought. Tonight, as your mind whispers about things it fears releasing, see if you can gently loosen your grip. Letting go does not remove what matters. It reveals what freedom feels like. The Buddha taught that in the end, only a few things truly matter: how sincerely we have lived, how deeply we have loved, and how gently we have learned to let go. The coconut teaches us that real strength often lies in knowing when to open the hand. And now, we turn to another story, one that reveals the quiet power of returning to what is real when fear feels overwhelming. This is the story of a captured warrior. In ancient Japan, during an age of relentless conflict between rival clans, a skilled warrior found himself defeated in battle. Surrounded by fallen comrades and cut off from escape, he was taken prisoner by the enemy. His armor was removed, his weapons taken. That night, he was thrown into a narrow stone cell, its cold walls closing in around him. The heavy door shut with a sound that echoed deep into his body. As darkness settled, his thoughts raced forward into tomorrow. He knew the customs of war. Interrogation would come first. Demands for information. When he refused, as honor required, there would be pain. He imagined torture, humiliation, and finally death. His heart pounded violently. His breath became shallow. Sweat gathered on his skin despite the chill. Sleep felt impossible as his mind replayed images of suffering again and again. Hours passed in restless torment. He paced the small space, leaned against the stone, lay on the rough floor. Nothing eased the storm in his thoughts. Then, from somewhere deep within memory, he heard the calm voice of his old Zen teacher, spoken long ago at the monastery. Tomorrow is not real. Only now is real. At first, his frightened mind resisted. How could tomorrow be unreal when its dangers felt so certain? But as he sat quietly and allowed the words to settle, something softened. He noticed his breath. In this moment he was breathing. He felt the straw beneath him. He heard the wind moving through trees outside the prison walls, indifferent to human struggle. In this moment he was not being tortured. In this moment he was not dying. In this moment he was simply alive. The fear that had seemed so solid revealed itself as thought, images of a future not yet present. As this realization deepened, calm spread through his body. His breath slowed. His heart steadied. A quiet smile appeared. The teaching had freed him from a prison far tighter than stone, the prison of imagined tomorrows. Before long, the warrior drifted into peaceful sleep. The Buddha taught that the past is known through the present, and the future is shaped by present actions. The warrior discovered a simple truth: life is only ever lived here now. Yet how often do we torment ourselves with futures that exist only in thought? Our minds evolved to anticipate danger, but when imagination replaces reality, anxiety is born. Look gently into your own experience. How much worry arises from situations that have not yet arrived? Conversations, results, outcomes that live mostly in the mind. The teaching of the warrior reminds us that we can acknowledge the future without surrendering the present. Planning has its place, but obsession steals peace. Impermanence teaches that nothing is fixed. Outcomes are never as certain as fear suggests. The warrior could not know what morning would bring. Rescue, mercy, negotiation, all were possible. The Buddha reminded us not to dwell in the past, nor chase the future, but to anchor awareness in this moment. When we return to the present, we often find unexpected resources for calm. The cell did not change. Only attention did, and suffering transformed into peace. This transformation is always available. Tonight, if your thoughts wander toward tomorrow, gently ask, what is happening now? Feel the breath. Notice the body resting. Sense the quiet around you. In this simplicity lies freedom. And now, let us drift into a final tale, one about trusting the current of life itself. In the depths of a clear, flowing river, there lived a community of small creatures along the sandy bottom. The water above them moved endlessly, carrying wisdom from distant mountains and unseen seas. For generations, every creature had learned the same lesson: hold on. From birth, they clung to stones, roots, and branches. The current is dangerous, the elders warned. It will carry you away. Safety lies in staying where you are. But one small creature grew tired of clinging. Each day, he watched the current glide overhead with quiet grace. While others complained of the strain of holding on, he wondered what it might feel like to trust the flow. "I am weary of gripping," he said one morning. "Though I do not know where the current leads, I trust its movement. I fear that if I continue clinging, I will never truly live." The others cried out in alarm. "Foolish one," they warned. "The current will smash you against the rocks." Yet the small creature released his grip. At once, the current seized him, tumbling him painfully along the riverbed. Stone after stone struck his body. But as he continued to surrender, refusing to grasp again, something unexpected occurred. The water lifted him gently upward, away from the rocks. And the tumbling slowly ceased. The current carried him, not to destruction, but to freedom. And as this image settles softly in your mind, allow your own grip to loosen. The river knows the way. The rocks could no longer touch him. Now he moved with the river itself, no longer resisting its direction, no longer struggling against its force. He was not fighting the current. He was participating in it, becoming part of its gentle power. As he drifted downstream, creatures in distant places saw something they had never witnessed before. One of their own kind was no longer clinging to the bottom. He seemed to glide effortlessly through the water, carried by a strength greater than his own. "A miracle," they whispered. "A being like us, yet he floats." Surely, they believed, he must be a savior sent to rescue them all. Hearing their cries, the flowing creature felt compassion for their misunderstanding. "I am no different from you," he called softly. "The river lifts us all when we are willing to release. Our task is not to cling to the bottom, but to trust the journey itself, this vast adventure of movement and becoming." But the creatures only cried louder, praising him as a rescuer, even as they tightened their grip on stones and roots. They watched until he vanished around the bend, then returned to their places, spinning stories about the miraculous one who had appeared among them for a brief moment. The Buddha taught that we lose only what we cling to. This teaching reveals a deep paradox within human life. We grasp for safety and control, believing security comes from holding tightly to what is familiar. Yet it is this very grasping that creates the suffering we hope to avoid. Why do we cling so fiercely when life itself offers to carry us forward? Zen wisdom explains that from an early age we are taught that the known is safe and the unknown is dangerous. Over time, this conditioning hardens into fear of change. What once protected us becomes the barrier that prevents growth. We also suffer from the illusion of control. We believe that by gripping circumstances, identities, and relationships, we can stop the natural flow of transformation. This creates tension because it places us in conflict with reality itself. Life moves. It always has. And when we resist this truth, we exhaust ourselves pushing against currents far stronger than our individual will. Gently consider where you are clinging. Perhaps it is a relationship that has already changed. Perhaps it is a role that once gave meaning but now feels heavy. Perhaps it is an image of who you believe you must remain. The current of change will move, whether we resist or not. The choice is simple, though not easy. We can tire ourselves through resistance, or we can discover the quiet grace that appears when we soften and allow. Water does not argue with the mountains. It finds its way around them. When we learn to move with life rather than against it, we discover an ease that force can never achieve. Tonight, as you rest in stillness, ask gently, what is ready to be released? A worry about tomorrow? A regret from yesterday? A definition of yourself that has grown too small? Can you feel the subtle current of this moment and trust where it flows? The Buddha taught, let go of what is past. Let go of what may come. Let go of what is happening now. In this trust, we discover that the current we feared would destroy us is the very force that carries us home. And now, we turn to a Zen story about creative compassion and how wisdom sometimes serves human needs in unexpected ways. This is the story of the magical squash. One year, great hardship came to the Hakatar region. A deadly illness swept through the land, leaving fear and confusion in its wake. No one fully understood how the disease spread, and in that uncertainty, old superstitions and desperate theories took root. Among those affected was the head of a merchant household. Earlier in the year, he had made what seemed like a wise investment, purchasing vast quantities of squash from local farmers, expecting strong seasonal demand. Under ordinary conditions, his decision would have brought prosperity. But these were not ordinary times. As fear spread, a rumor arose that eating squash made people more vulnerable to illness. Whether born from misunderstanding or panic, the belief took hold quickly. Suddenly, no one would buy squash at any price. Watching his stores spoil and his livelihood crumble, the merchant went to Master Sengai's temple in deep distress. "Revered one," he said, his voice heavy, "my family will be ruined. No one will buy what I have. Please help me." The master listened carefully. This was not a moment for abstract philosophy. It was a moment of real human suffering. "That is truly difficult," he said gently. "Very well. I will help you sell them. Bring all your squash here." The merchant was confused. How could a Zen master sell what the entire region feared? Yet having no other path, he brought everything to the temple. Master Sengai arranged the squash openly at the temple gate, where all could see. Then he placed a sign above them, written boldly, "Sacred Squash for Protection." He laid out his meditation mat beside the display and sat quietly in zazen. The effect was swift. Word spread rapidly. People came from every direction, eager to buy what they now believed to be beneficial rather than dangerous. Seeing the respected master meditating beside the squash gave the display an air of unquestioned trust. By midday, every squash was sold. The merchant's family was saved. And the community, believing itself protected, found relief from fear. Buddhist teaching speaks of skillful means, the ability to adapt wisdom to the needs of the moment. Master Sengai could have lectured about superstition or urged acceptance of loss. Instead, he chose compassion expressed through creativity. He worked with the beliefs people held, rather than struggling against them. This story shows that true wisdom is not limited to temples or teachings. It appears wherever suffering can be eased. Sometimes that requires unconventional action. Sometimes it means stepping beyond appearances and responding to what truly helps. Why do we assume spiritual life must avoid practical concerns? This separation between sacred and ordinary often prevents wisdom from reaching the places it is most needed. The master understood that relieving suffering mattered more than appearing correct. By redirecting fear rather than confronting it, he achieved what argument never could. Zen practice cultivates adaptive wisdom, the capacity to meet each situation freshly, with whatever response brings genuine benefit. And as this story settles into stillness, allow your mind to soften. Let the current carry you. It asks for a gentle flexibility of self, a softness of ego that values what truly helps over how we appear, and what brings ease over the need to remain unchanged. In many corners of modern life, we can sense similar moments inviting creative response. The counselor who listens through a client's familiar language instead of forcing new concepts. The teacher who meets students where their hearts and minds already rest, rather than insisting on immediate transformation. The leader who honors the fears and concerns of a group instead of dismissing them as unreasonable. This Zen tale also guides us toward understanding the quiet power of symbol and ritual in shaping inner experience. The master's silent meditation beside the squash was not a performance meant to deceive. It was sincere presence, steady awareness, and compassionate intention made visible. That calm sitting infused the entire moment with meaning, turning fear into reassurance without argument. Often, we imagine spiritual practice as separate from everyday problem-solving, as if wisdom should concern itself only with timeless truths rather than immediate needs. Yet this story shows that genuine spirituality steps fully into the world, meeting each situation as it arises, offering creativity and care where suffering appears. The squash itself never changed. What changed was the meaning people placed upon it. And through that shift, reality itself softened. This reminds us that many struggles are not resolved by altering circumstances, but by gently reframing how we perceive them. Tonight, as you reflect on challenges in your own life or community, notice where patience, creativity, or symbolic action might serve more deeply than resistance or debate. What would it feel like to choose helpfulness over being right, compassion over consistency? The Buddha taught that if we wish to understand the past, we need only observe the present. And if we wish to shape the future, we begin by tending gently to this moment, by meeting life as it is, rather than as we believe it should be. We open space for transformation that benefits all. Let us continue this quiet journey with another Zen story, one that returns us to the simplicity of childhood, reminding us that the earliest questions often hold the clearest wisdom. This story is known as the Flounder. Long before Master Ryoan became known for insight and kindness, he was simply a small child living under the guidance of his family. Like all children, he struggled at times with routine and expectation, learning through both curiosity and mistake. One morning, he slept later than was considered proper. In those days, rising early was not only habit, but moral teaching, tied closely to discipline and character. When his father discovered this, he responded with firm correction, believing it necessary for the boy's growth. Yet young Ryoan did not answer with apology. Instead, he looked up with a steady, unblinking gaze, open, direct, and unguarded. To the father, this stare felt challenging, even disrespectful, within a culture that valued quiet obedience. Moved by frustration and tradition, the father spoke sharply, declaring that anyone who stared at his parent in such a way would surely become a flounder. To an adult, these words might sound symbolic, but to a child they carried literal truth. Fear filled the boy's heart. Without speaking, he ran from the house, carried by the certainty that transformation was inevitable. His small feet led him far, all the way to a cliff overlooking the sea, where he believed his new life would soon begin. As hours passed and the child did not return, worry spread through the household. Neighbors searched fields and paths until, as evening approached, they found him sitting quietly by the ocean, gazing into the moving water. When asked why he had run away, the boy looked up with honest confusion and asked, "Have I not turned into a flounder yet?" Zen teaching tells us that in the beginner's mind, possibilities are vast. This story gently reveals how belief shapes identity and how innocent perception touches truths that complexity often hides. In the child's question lives a reminder: transformation begins not in fear, but in awareness, and wisdom often speaks in the softest voice. Now, as the night deepens, allow these stories to settle like ripples fading on still water, and rest. Young Ryokan's simple, literal acceptance of his father's words carried him straight into the timeless questions that rest at the heart of all spiritual paths. Questions of who we are, what we become, how change happens, and whether the self is fixed or fluid. His quiet question by the ocean, "Have I not become a flounder yet?" holds more depth than many long philosophical debates. In his innocence, he was not playing with ideas. He was meeting them directly. He was asking, without disguise or defense, what identity truly is, and whether transformation can really happen. These were the same questions that would later guide his life as a spiritual teacher. What is most touching is not the fear that brought him there, but the way he waited. He did not argue with the possibility of change. He did not deny it or try to escape it. He simply went to the place where he believed transformation would occur and sat, quietly, accepting whatever might come. This kind of complete surrender is something adult seekers often struggle to reach after many years of study and meditation. Yet the child arrived there naturally. Why do we so often dismiss the questions of childhood as naive, rather than recognizing them as pure spiritual inquiry? Perhaps because adult life depends on stable identities. We cling to names, roles, and stories about who we are. Childlike curiosity threatens these structures by asking what lies beneath them. Ryakan's response also reveals how powerful words can be, especially when spoken with authority. What was meant as discipline became an existential journey. A metaphor became reality in the open mind of a child. Yet this openness, the willingness to believe that real change is possible, is not a weakness. It is the very soil in which true transformation grows. Sitting by the ocean, waiting to become something else, the boy showed a courage many adults lack. Rather than distracting himself or reasoning the fear away, he faced it directly. He waited with patience, not knowing what would happen next. This story reminds us that profound insight often arises when we take questions seriously that the world tells us are foolish. The child's literal understanding led him into deep contemplation that sophistication often avoids. Zen practice speaks of a return to mature innocence. Not ignorance, but openness. The ability to meet life freshly, without hiding behind concepts. To ask simple questions and stay present for the answers, whatever form they take. The image of the small boy alone at the edge of the sea reflects the spiritual journey itself. Reaching the boundary of what we know and waiting there quietly, ready to be changed, even if that change unsettles everything we thought we were. We often believe spiritual growth means moving beyond childhood wonder into complexity. Yet this story suggests the opposite. That wisdom deepens when adult understanding reunites with childlike openness. True transformation asks for the courage to stand at the edge of the unknown, as Ryakan did. To wait without certainty. To be willing to become something we cannot yet imagine. Tonight, as you rest, gently ask yourself, where might you allow this kind of openness in your own life? What would it mean to meet change without resistance, trusting that becoming is part of being? The Buddha taught that, in the end, only three things truly matter: how deeply we have lived, how openly we have loved, and how gently we have learned to let go. The boy who wondered if he had become a flounder was already touching the truth that identity is not fixed, that what we are is far more fluid, mysterious, and alive than we usually believe. And now we continue with another Zen story, one that speaks of choice, responsibility, and the quiet power held within each moment. This is the story of the young man and the bird. There was once a clever student who had grown weary of his teacher's calm answers. He believed the old master spoke in riddles only to appear wise. Determined to expose what he saw as pretense, the student devised a test. One morning, he caught a small sparrow in the garden. The bird trembled softly in his hands, its tiny heart beating fast. Hiding it behind his back, he approached his teacher, who sat peacefully in the morning light, reading ancient texts. "Master," the student said, excitement barely concealed, "I have a question for you." The teacher looked up with gentle eyes. He had seen this restlessness before and welcomed it without judgment. "Please," the teacher replied, "ask." Stepping closer, the student asked, "I hold a bird in my hands. Tell me, through your wisdom, is it alive or dead?" The student smiled inwardly, convinced he had created an impossible trap. If the teacher said alive, the bird would be killed. If he said dead, the bird would be released. Either way, the student believed the teacher would be exposed. And so, the moment rested there, quiet, balanced, waiting, like a breath before sleep. He waited with quiet excitement, certain the moment of victory had arrived. Certain that the old teacher would finally be exposed. The master did not rush to answer. He did not try to look behind the student's back. He did not ask for more information. Instead, he sat in stillness. His gaze rested softly, not on the young man's hands, but somewhere deeper, as if he were seeing beyond the trick, beyond the question itself. After a long, gentle pause, the teacher smiled. It was a smile filled with kindness rather than cleverness. "My young friend," he said calmly, "the answer is already in your hands." The student froze. In a single breath, his carefully constructed trap fell apart. The teacher had refused the false choice. He had stepped outside the game entirely and pointed to a deeper truth. The young man looked down at his cupped hands. He felt the small bird trembling, its heart beating fast against his palms. And suddenly he understood. The bird's fate had never depended on the teacher. It had never depended on wisdom, guessing, or clever words. It had always rested with him. Not only in this moment, but in every moment. Life or death, care or harm, creation or destruction. These choices were always placed quietly in his hands. Slowly, with a steadier breath, he brought his hands forward and opened them. The bird paused for just an instant, as if sensing freedom, then lifted into the open sky and vanished among the trees. The Buddha taught that we are shaped by our thoughts, that from thought arises action, and from action, the world we live within. This teaching reveals a gentle responsibility, not a burden but a truth. We are always participating in the shaping of our experience. And yet, how often do we search outside ourselves for answers that can only be found within? How often do we wait for someone else to decide for us? Zen reminds us that true wisdom cannot be handed from one person to another. It must be discovered through living. The student believed he was testing the teacher. But the question was never about the master's insight. It was about the student's own power. Every day, we hold something fragile in our hands. A relationship, a choice of words, an opportunity to act with kindness or indifference. The outcome does not belong to circumstance. It belongs to how we respond. True teachers do not give answers. They return us to ourselves. They help us see the choices we are already making. As one Zen teacher said, we are always choosing, even when we believe we are not. Tonight, as your breath slows and your body rests, you may gently ask yourself, where am I waiting for someone else to decide? Where do I already hold the answer? The Buddha reminded us that no one walks the path for us. We must walk it ourselves. The bird flew free not because of wisdom spoken, but because of choice recognized. And now, we continue with another Zen teaching, one that explores seeing, not seeing, and the limits of the thinking mind. This is the teaching of 3 strikes and deeper vision. At a quiet mountain monastery, students gathered from distant regions to study with the 6th patriarch, Huining. Among them was a sharp-minded monk named Shenhui, known for his quick intellect and restless questioning. Unlike others who approached with humility, Shenhui often arrived with challenges shaped by clever thought. One afternoon, sunlight spilled gently across the hall. The master sat unmoving, breath soft, presence complete. Shenhui stepped forward and bowed. "Master," he asked confidently, "when you meditate, do you see or do you not see?" Before the question could settle, the patriarch lifted his staff and struck him 3 times, quick, direct, unmistakable. Then he asked calmly, "When I strike you, does it hurt or not?" Shenhui touched his shoulder, startled. The pain was real. Yet something deeper was unfolding. "It both hurts and does not hurt," he answered slowly. "I both see and do not see," the patriarch replied. Confused, Shenhui pressed on. "How can both be true?" The master spoke gently. "What I see is the movement of my own mind. What I do not see is right and wrong in others. This is my seeing and not seeing." In that moment, the teaching became clear. Awakened seeing is not about visions. It is about clarity. Zen tells us the thinking mind divides the world. This or that, good or bad, right or wrong. But deeper vision rests beyond division. And as you drift towards sleep, may this understanding settle softly within you, like water becoming still. Awakened awareness does not remove pain, thought, or emotion. It changes how we meet them. This is the deeper teaching offered here. True spiritual perception is not about escaping experience, but about relating to it with clarity and ease. The patriarch sees his own mind clearly. He notices thoughts as they rise and fade. He observes emotions as they move through awareness. Nothing mystical, only steady mindfulness, practiced again and again. He witnesses the wandering of consciousness without being carried away by it. At the same time, he does not see in the judging sense. He does not impose rigid ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, onto the actions of others. This, not seeing, is not blindness. It is wisdom, because judgment often reveals more about the observer than about what is being observed. As you rest now, you might gently reflect on your own way of seeing. When someone irritates you, are you seeing their actions clearly, or are you seeing your own habits, memories, and sensitivities? When someone impresses you, are you recognizing their true qualities, or projecting your own wishes and longings? Ancient wisdom teaches the difference between reactive seeing and clear seeing. Reactive seeing is shaped by the past, by conditioning, by emotional hunger and fear. Clear seeing arises from awareness that knows itself. Zen Master Dogen taught, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." This points to the same truth. Real seeing turns inward first. The 3 strikes Shen Hui received were not punishment. They were a teaching. Pain was felt. And yet, awareness remained open. In the same way, thoughts and feelings arise in consciousness without staining its natural clarity. Imagine what might change if you turned your attention from judging others to observing your own reactions. What patterns would you notice? What habits gently reveal themselves when watched with kindness? This does not make us passive. It makes us free. In Zen practice, this is called mirror mind. Awareness that reflects everything, yet remains untouched. Tonight, as your mind sorts and labels the day, can you remember this teaching? Can you notice the one who is seeing, rather than becoming lost in what is seen? The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anyone in the universe, deserve your love and compassion." By meeting our own mind gently, we learn to meet others the same way. And now, we turn to a story about heaven and hell, not as distant worlds, but as states of the heart. This is the story of the samurai and the gates. In feudal Japan, a battle-worn warrior named Nobushige sought out the Zen master Hakuin. His armor bore the marks of many conflicts. His eyes carried the fatigue of violence long endured. He bowed stiffly before the master and asked, "Tell me honestly, do heaven and hell truly exist after death?" Hakuin looked at him quietly, then asked, Who are you to ask such a question? I am a samurai, the warrior replied proudly. I have served my lord without fear. Hakuin laughed sharply. A samurai? Your face is rough, your posture clumsy. What lord would trust you? The words struck deeply. Anger surged. The warrior's hand flew to his sword. You carry a blade? Hakuin continued. It looks too dull to cut anything at all. The sword began to rise. Rage narrowed the world. Then Hakuin said calmly, Here, the gates of hell open. The warrior froze. In that moment, he saw his own mind clearly, consumed by anger, ready to destroy. Slowly, he sheathed his sword and bowed deeply. Hakuin smiled gently. And here, the gates of paradise open. Hatred does not end hatred. Only understanding does. This story teaches us something simple and profound. Heaven and hell are not places we go. They are places we enter right now. Each moment we choose. A sharp word, a careless thought, a wounded pride, and suddenly, peace becomes suffering. Zen practice helps us notice the moment the sword begins to rise. That recognition is the key. As your breathing slows now, feel the quiet that remains. Peace is not something you earn. It is something you remember. Like the stillness beneath waves, it has always been here. As you drift towards sleep, carry this softness with you. You can return to it with a single breath. Sleep well and rest gently.